Eidgah, a story by Munshi Premchand. This story beautifully portrays rural Muslim life, centered around the important festival of Eid. The character of Hamid shows how scarcity can make children wise beyond their years. At the fair, Hamid controls his desires and buys a pair of tongs for his grandmother Amina, so she doesn't burn her hands while making bread. Let's listen to the famous story, Eidgah, written by Munshi Premchand. After 30 days of fasting during Ramadan, Eid has arrived today. What a beautiful and colorful morning it is. The trees look so fresh and green, like a smiling child. The fields are lively, and the sky has a special feeling of joy. Even the sun today seems to be wishing the world a happy Eid. The village is bustling with excitement. Everyone is getting ready to go to the Eidgah. Some people are rushing to find needles and thread because their shirts are missing buttons. Others are softening their shoes with oil and water because they've become stiff. They quickly feed their cattle because by the time they return from the Eidgah, it will be noon. It's a long 3-mile walk, and there will be many relatives to meet, so it's impossible to return before afternoon. The children are the happiest. Some of them fasted for a day, only until noon, while others didn't fast at all. But the excitement of going to the Eidgah is what matters to them. Fasting is for the adults, but Eid is for the children. Every day they would talk about Eid, and now it's finally here. They can't wait to go to the Eidgah. They don't care about the household concerns. They don't worry about whether there's enough milk, sugar, or dry fruits for the special Eid treats at home. They have no idea why their fathers are rushing to the village moneylender's house. For the children, their pockets feel like they're filled with treasure. They keep counting their money and showing it to their friends, excited about what they'll buy with just a few coins: toys, sweets, trumpets, and who knows what else. Hamid is the happiest of all. He is a poor, charming 4-year-old boy. His father passed away last year due to cholera, and his mother, who had been sick for a long time, died one day, leaving without a word. No one knew what her illness was. Who would she have told? Who would have listened? She endured it silently, and when she couldn't bear it anymore, she left this world. Now Hamid lives with his old grandmother, Amina, and sleeps in her lap. He is happy in his innocence. He believes his father has gone far away to earn money and will come back with bags full of wealth. And his mother has gone to Allah's house to bring sweets. That's why he remains silent, believing that when his parents return, his dreams will come true. Hamid doesn't have shoes. He wears an old cap, faded from use. But he is still happy. He believes that when his father brings money and his mother brings sweets, he will enjoy life to the fullest. Then, he'll show Mahmud, Mohsin, Azhar, and Sami where all their money comes from. No matter what challenges life throws at him, his innocent smile is enough to conquer them. Hamid goes inside and tells his grandmother, "Don't worry, Grandma. I won't leave the other children behind. Don't be afraid." But Amina can't help but worry. The other children are going with their fathers, but Hamid will be going alone. What if he gets lost in the crowd? She hesitates to let him go alone. After all, he's so young. Can he walk 3 miles without getting blisters on his feet? But if Amina goes with him, who will prepare the sweet vermicelli when Hamid returns hungry and tired in the afternoon? Plus, Amina hardly has any money. She earned 8 coins from sewing clothes for Fahmeen's family and saved every bit for this Eid. But some of that money had to be spent on debts. And she had to buy milk for Hamid every day. Now, only 2 coins are left, 3 in Hamid's pocket and 5 in Amina's purse. This is all they have. She hopes God will help them through. The washerwoman, the sweeper, and the midwife will all come, expecting sweet vermicelli. How can she avoid them? It's the only festival of the year. May they live happily and may the child stay safe. This day will pass somehow. The villagers set off, and Hamid goes with the other children. The children run ahead and then stop under a tree to wait for the slower adults. Why are they walking so slowly? The city comes into view, with large houses lining both sides of the road, surrounded by high walls. Mango trees fill the gardens. Hamid picks up a small stone and throws it at a mango. The gardener shouts from within and comes out angrily, but the children are already a long way off, laughing and teasing the gardener. Soon they reach the big buildings, the courthouse, the school, the club. How many children must study in such a big school? Not children, they are grown men with big mustaches, still attending school. Today is a holiday, but the last time they came, many of these mustached men were playing there. They wonder why these grown men are still studying. What will they do with all that learning? Hamid said, when there's a need, she can run fast too. Remember that day when your cow got loose and wandered into Chaudhry's field? It was your mother who ran and chased it back. She ran so fast. Both of us were left behind. They kept walking. The sweet shops started appearing. Today, they were beautifully decorated. Who eats so many sweets? Look at each shop, they must have hundreds of pounds of sweets. I heard that at night, a genie comes to each shop and buys all the leftover sweets. He even pays real money, like these silver coins. Mahmoud didn't believe it. Where would a genie get money? Mohsin replied, why would a genie have any shortage of money? They can go to any treasure they want. No one can see them. Not even iron doors can stop them. You don't understand. They have diamonds and jewels. If they're happy with someone, they give them baskets full of jewels. They can reach Kabul in just 5 minutes if they want. Hamid said, genies must be really big. Mohsin added, yes, as big as the sky. If they stand on the ground, their head touches the sky. But if they want, they can fit inside a small pot. Sami chimed in, I heard Chaudhry Sahib has control over many genies. If something gets stolen, he can tell you where it is and even the name of the thief. When Jumeirati's scarf went missing, they looked for 3 days and couldn't find it. Finally, they went to Chaudhry Sahib. He said the calf was in the barn, and that's exactly where it was. The genies come and tell him everything. Now everyone understood why Chaudhry Qasim Ali was so wealthy and respected. The genies gave him money. Moving ahead, they reached the police lines. Here, the policemen were practicing drills, right, left, firm, forward. Noori corrected, here, the policemen keep watch. That's why they know so much. But honestly, they help thieves steal. All the thieves and robbers in the city are in contact with them. At night, they shout, stay awake, in one neighborhood and help thieves in another. My uncle is a constable in a police station. He earns 20 rupees a month but sends bags full of money home. Once I asked him, Uncle, where do you get so much money? He laughed and said, God provides. Then he added, if we want, we can take lakhs in a single day. But we take just enough to avoid getting caught and losing our jobs. Hamid asked in surprise, if they help in thefts, why doesn't anyone catch them? Noori, feeling sorry for Hamid's naivety, said, you fool. Who's going to catch them? They are the ones doing the catching. But God punishes them. Not long ago, my uncle's house caught fire. Everything burned down, not even a single pot was saved. They slept under a tree for days. God knows where they borrowed money from to buy new pots and pans. The village became more crowded. Groups of people heading to the Eidgah could be seen. Each person was dressed in their finest clothes. Some rode in carriages, some in cars, and the scent of perfume filled the air. This small group of poor villagers, despite their shabby clothes, continued walking with patience and contentment. They stared longingly at things they couldn't afford and didn't even notice the honking cars behind them. Mohsin almost got hit by a car. Finally, the Eidgah came into view. The prayer had started. Beneath the shade of dense tamarind trees, there was an open, paved floor with mats laid out. The lines of worshippers stretched out as far as the eye could see. Behind the mats, more lines had formed, and people kept joining as they arrived. There was no more space at the front. Here, no one cared about rank or status. In Islam, everyone is equal. Even the villagers performed ablution and joined the prayer. How perfectly synchronized the congregation was, thousands of people bowing together, sitting on their knees together, and repeating the movements in unison. It was as if millions of lights were turning on and off at once. What a solemn and awe-inspiring sight it was. The harmony, the vastness, and the sheer number of people created a deep emotional experience. It felt as though a bond of brotherhood was connecting all these souls. The prayer ended, and people started hugging each other. Some were giving charity to the beggars who had gathered in large numbers. The villagers eagerly rushed to the sweets and toy stalls. Even the old men were just as interested as the children. Look, there's the merry-go-round. For just 1 penny, it feels like you are flying in the sky, and then you drop back down to the ground. There was a spinning wheel with wooden horses, camels, and elephants hanging from poles. For 1 penny, you can ride for 25 turns. Mahmoud and Mohsin were already on the merry-go-round. Azhar and Sami were on the horses. Even the older folks were just as excited to ride the spinning wheel. Hamid stood far away. He had only 3 pennies. He couldn't afford to waste 1/3 of his treasure on a short ride. Mohsin's father called him over to ride, but Hamid refused. The older men commented that this boy already understood the value of money. Hamid thought, why should I take anyone's favor? His struggles had made him far more mature than his age. After the ride, the shopping for toys began. Soldiers, milkmaids, kings, queens, lawyers, washermen, and water carriers, all kinds of toys were there. The washerman sat beside the king and queen, and the water carrier next to the lawyer. How beautiful they looked, almost ready to speak. Mahmoud was captivated by the soldier. He wore a khaki uniform with a red turban and carried a rifle on his shoulder, looking like he was ready to march off to a drill. Mohsin liked the water carrier. His back was bent, holding the opening of the water bag with one hand and a rope in the other. His face was full of joy, maybe he was even singing. Water was dripping from the bag. Noori, on the other hand, liked the lawyer. He looked very scholarly in his black robe, with a white coat underneath and a gold chain in his coat pocket. In one hand, he held a book of law. It seemed like he had just come from arguing in court. All these were toys costing just 2 pennies each. But Hamid had only 3 pennies. If he spent 2 on a toy, what would he buy next? No, toys are a waste. If they fall, they'll break into pieces. If a little water touches them, their colors will fade. What would he do with these toys? What use are they? Mohsin boasted, my water carrier will bring water every day, morning and evening. Noori added, and my lawyer will fight cases and earn money every day. Hamid criticized the toys. They were just made of clay, if they fell, they'd break. Yet, he couldn't help but look at them with longing eyes, wishing he could hold them, even if just for a moment. They reached a vendor's shop filled with various items. Bowls, whistles, trumpets, spinning tops, rubber toys, so many things. Mohsin bought a whistle, Mahmoud a bowl, Noori a rubber doll that squeaked, and Sami a small drum, which he would play and sing along. Hamid stood there, looking at them with longing eyes. Whenever one of his friends bought something, he would excitedly ask to hold it for a moment. But boys aren't always generous, especially when they're still excited about their new toys. Poor Hamid was left feeling disappointed. After the toys, they moved on to sweets. Some bought candies, others gulab jamun, and some sohan halwa. They ate with delight. Hamid felt left out. Even though he had 3 pennies in his pocket, he didn't buy anything. He looked at them longingly as they ate. Mohsin teased, Hamid, here, take this candy. It smells so good. Hamid knew Mohsin was just messing with him. Mohsin wasn't that generous. Still, Hamid went over to him. Mohsin took out 2 or 3 pieces of candy and pretended to offer them to Hamid. When Hamid stretched out his hand, Mohsin pulled the candy back and popped them into his own mouth. Mahmoud, Noori, and Sami clapped and laughed. Hamid felt embarrassed. Mohsin then said, "All right, now I'll really give you some. Here, take it, I swear." Hamid replied, "Keep it, keep it. Do you think I don't have money?" Sami chimed in, "You've only got 3 pennies, what can you buy with that?" Mahmoud added, "Don't talk to him. Hamid, come to me. Take this gulab jamun." Hamid retorted, "Sweets aren't such a big deal. They even write about how bad they are in books." Mohsin teased, "But I bet you are secretly wishing you could eat some. Why don't you spend your own money?" Mahmoud guessed, "I know what he's thinking. When we've all spent our money, he'll buy sweets and tease us while eating them." Beyond the sweet shops, there were shops selling metal items and fake jewelry. There wasn't much of interest for the boys there. But Hamid stopped in front of a shop selling tongs. He decided he would buy a pair. His mother didn't have any tongs and would burn her hands while taking bread off the hot pan. If he bought the tongs and gave them to her, she'd be so happy. Then her fingers would never burn again, and it would be something useful for the house. What good were toys? They were a waste of money. A toy only brings happiness for a short time. By the time they reached home, the toys might break, or younger kids who couldn't come to the fair might cry and demand the toys, only to break them. But tongs were practical. You could pick up bread, handle fire from the stove. His mother never had the time or money to buy tongs herself. Every day, she burned her hands. His friends had moved ahead, drinking water at a nearby fountain. How selfish they were. They had bought so many sweets but hadn't offered him even one. And now they expected him to play with them and wash their slates at school? If Mohsin asked him to do anything now, he'd give him a piece of his mind. Let them eat their sweets, and their mouths will rot, they'll get pimples and boils, and they'll steal money to satisfy their cravings. But Hamid's tongue won't be spoiled. He thought again about how happy his mother would be when she saw the tongs. She'd run to him, take the tongs from his hand, and say, "My son brought this for me." She would bless him 1,000 times. Then she'd show them to the neighbors, and the whole village would praise him. No one was going to get blessings for their toys. A mother's blessings go straight to heaven and are quickly accepted. He didn't have much money, but that's why Mohsin and Mahmoud treated him this way. One day, he'd show them. When his father came back, he'd buy toys for all the poor boys, give them nice clothes, and good books too, not just candies to tease others with. They would laugh at his tongs, but they were fools. Hamid nervously asked the shopkeeper, "Will you sell these tongs?" The shopkeeper looked at him, saw no one with him, and replied, "It's not for you." "Is it for sale or not?" "Yes, of course. Why would I bring it here if it wasn't?" "Then tell me, how much is it?" "6 pennies. Hamid's heart sunk. He bravely asked, "Will you take 3 pennies?" and stepped forward so the shopkeeper wouldn't scold him. But the shopkeeper didn't scold him and handed over the tongs. Hamid gave him the money, put the tongs on his shoulder like a gun, and proudly walked back to his friends. Mohsin laughed, "He bought tongs. What a fool, what are you going to do with that?" Hamid threw the tongs on the ground and said, "Throw your water carrier on the ground, and see, its ribs will be smashed to pieces." Mahmoud asked, "Is that tongs a toy?" Hamid replied, "Why isn't it? When I carry it on my shoulder, it's a gun, and when I hold it in my hand, it's a saint's staff. If I want, I can pinch your nose with it. One pinch, and all your toys will be destroyed. No matter how much force your toys use, they won't be able to break my strong tongs." Sami, impressed, offered, "Will you trade it for my drum? It's worth 2 pennies. Hamid looked down on the drum and said, "My tongs could slice your drum open if I wanted. Your drum is just a piece of leather that makes noise. A little water would ruin it. But my brave tongs can withstand fire, water, wind, and storms." The fair was far behind now. It was 10 o'clock, and they were in a hurry to get home. There was no chance of getting any more items from the fair, and no one had any money left. Hamid was very clever. Now there were 2 groups, Mahmoud, Mohsin, and Nouri on one side, and Hamid alone on the other. Sami was neutral and would join whichever side won. A debate began. Hamid spoke with great confidence today. The trio's argument was troubled by his well-reasoned points. The trio had toys made of clay, rubber, and wood, while Hamid had only a piece of iron, which he considered his strongest asset. He was determined. If a lion roared nearby, the other toys would be of no use. The soldier would flee, the lawyer's law would be useless, and they would hide away. But Hamid, like a brave hero, would tackle the lion and defeat it. Mohsin argued with all his might, "Your item can't hold water." Hamid confidently replied that his item could handle any challenge the water carrier could throw at him. Mohsin was left speechless. Nouri added, "If the child is arrested, our lawyer will handle the case. What do you have to say?" Hamid didn't have an immediate counter, so he bought some time by asking, "Who will come to capture this item?" Mahmoud responded, "The soldier with the gun." Hamid scoffed, "Do you think these poor fellows can capture this hero? Let's see them try. At the sight of the lion, they'll run away." Mohsin made another attempt, "Your item will be scorched in the fire." Hamid was ready with his reply, "Brave people leap into the fire. Your lawyer, soldier, and water carrier are cowards. They will all hide. Only a true hero like Rustam would leap into the fire." Nouri insisted, "Your item will be left on the kitchen floor, while my lawyer will sit majestically on a chair." This statement invigorated everyone, and Sami also felt victorious. Hamid retorted, "My item will be in the kitchen, and the lawyer will be thrown to the ground, his law made useless." Although Hamid's response wasn't very strong, the idea of putting the lawyer's law into the stomach of his item won over everyone. The three champions were left speechless. Hamid had won the debate. Despite the toys like balls, whistles, and figurines still being available, who cared about them when faced with the might of Hamid's item? The victor took a favorable view of his spoils. He began to receive admiration, and everyone spent their 3 pennies but couldn't buy anything useful. Hamid made the most of his 3 pennies. Toys are unreliable, they break easily. Hamid's item, however, would always be useful. On the way, Mahmoud bought some small candies. Hamid received a share of them, even though he had refused. Mohsin and Sami bought some small fruits, and Hamid got a share of those too. All of this was thanks to the might of Hamid's item. By 11 o'clock, there was a bustle in the village. The fairgoers had returned. Mohsin's little sister grabbed the water carrier from his hands, and in her joy, she jumped so much that the water carrier fell, and the situation became chaotic. There was a fight between the siblings, and their mother became angry upon hearing the commotion. She gave both of them 2 slaps each. Nouri's lawyer met with an even worse fate. The lawyer couldn't sit on the ground or a shelf. His position had to be respected. 2 hooks were nailed into the wall, an old plank was placed on them, and a red rag was laid out. The lawyer was positioned on the makeshift seat. Nouri started waving a fan, but the lawyer, either from the breeze or the fan's swat, was being shifted from the celestial realm to the earthly one. There was a loud mourning, and the lawyer's remains were discarded on a rubbish heap according to the custom, so they wouldn't go to waste and could be used for fuel. As for Mahmoud's soldier, he was an esteemed figure who couldn't bear walking on his own. Mahmoud took a kid goat, placed the soldier on its back, and led the goat by its ear to the door, while his brothers called out, "Here comes the dashing soldier." Suddenly, something happened, and the soldier fell from the goat's back, landing on the ground with his gun. One of the legs was injured. But no worries, Mahmoud is a skilled doctor. Doctors Nigam and Bhatia can assist him, and he will fix the broken leg quickly. All he needs is fig milk. The fig milk arrives, and the leg is set, but as soon as it is lifted, the leg falls apart again. The surgical procedure fails. Then Mahmoud breaks the other leg too. Now he can sit comfortably in one place. With one broken leg, he couldn't walk or sit properly. Now, listen to Hamid's story. As soon as Amina heard his voice, she ran and picked him up, showering him with love. Suddenly, she noticed the tongs in his hand and was surprised. "Where did you get these tongs, son?" "I bought them for 3 pennies. Amina beat her chest in frustration. "What kind of foolish boy are you? It's noon, and you haven't eaten or drunk anything. What did you bring? You couldn't find anything else at the fair." Hamid, with a guilty look, asked, "Didn't your fingers get burned by the stove?" Amina's anger instantly turned into compassion, though it wasn't the kind of compassion expressed in words but a silent, deep compassion filled with pain and longing. Oh, how touching and heart-wrenching it was. The poor child had suppressed his innocent desire so much. While other boys were buying toys and eating sweets, his heart must have been aching. He had shown such restraint. He remembered his elderly mother even there. "How much my child cares for me." This feeling grew in her heart as if she had the kingdom of the world in her hands and would give it all to Hamid. And then something very touching happened. Old Amina turned into little Amina. She began to cry, spreading her arms and showering Hamid with blessings while tears fell from her eyes. Hamid could not understand the depth of this emotion, and perhaps even we, as onlookers, might not fully grasp it.